Good evening. Staying connected with other people is getting harder and harder, but technology can help and is getting easier and easier to use. Stay with us as we talk about digital literacy.
In tonight's very special Shadowbox segment, we will tell the story of retired Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Valesky. His home in Virginia was burglarized in 2019. Among the things stolen were the medals he earned serving from 1958 to 1982, including 2 years in Vietnam as a helicopter pilot. Detective Frank Corona, a Marine veteran himself, made arrests in the case, but was unable to recover the medals. That is when he decided to raise the money to replace the medals himself. He held a ceremony and presented a shadow box with the replaced medals inside to the 83-year-old veteran who found himself floored and in a state of shock over the kindness of his fellow Marine.
Thanks for tuning in to Veterans Voices. I'm Nathan Johnson. Veterans Voices is a monthly television show that explores important issues that affect the veterans community. We encourage you to participate in this very important conversation tonight. If you would like to ask questions, call us at 925-313-1170. Send us a message through Facebook at Veterans Voices 1 or email us veteransvoices@contracostatv.org. We would love to hear from you.
Good evening. I'm Erin Esquer, and this evening, Veterans Voices will look at digital literacy. Our panel of experts will talk about the advantages of getting connected and give you some ideas about where to get started. Our first guests all represent organizations that help veterans start that journey. I'd like to welcome Sean Lehman of Heroes with Hearing Loss, Tina Atherall of Psych Armor Institute, and Mark Casper of Tech for Troops for the show. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So we wanted to give you guys a chance to just give us a little brief overview for our audience to know and understand a little bit about your organization. So we'll start with you, Mark.
Hey, thanks for having me. Mark Casper, Executive Director of Tech for Troops based in Richmond, Virginia. And our mission is to bridge the digital divide in the veteran community. How we do that is by providing digital literacy as in basic computer training and also the gift of a free computer to in-need veterans and their families.
Thanks, Mark. Sean, tell us a little bit about your organization.
Thank you, Nathan. My name is Sean Lehman. I'm the national spokesperson for the Heroes with Hearing Loss program. And our program focuses on creating a conversation about veterans with hearing loss and how that affects us in a unique way. Lots of people have hearing loss, but most veterans have either some form of hearing loss and tinnitus, and it can dramatically affect the way that we interact with other folks. So we want to make sure that we have a conversation about staying connected with family, friends, and those who are important to you.
We appreciate that. And Tina, welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be with you all. So I'm Tina Atherall. I'm the CEO at Psych Armor Institute, and we are a national nonprofit, but we are located here in the great state of California, headquartered in San Diego. And we work with service members, veterans, and their families across the country, as well as a cross-sector approach to bringing the power of education, all online, digital education. And one of our course portfolios is all around digital literacy and working with veterans and their families on getting online and the great ways in doing that. And we do that through education.
Well, we appreciate you all being on today and sharing a little bit about your organization. And we know tonight's topic, with regards to digital literacy in our veteran population, and just really wanting to dig right into it and talk about, the importance of this specific topic. There's so many different facets and gamuts of it. And we're basically just kind of wondering from you all as the experts, why these services are so needed for our veteran population. So we can start with you, Mark, if you'd like to get back on and just kind of share from your perspective.
Sure. We actually have a tremendous amount of veterans across the nation who contact us, but the ones in Richmond, we expect them to come in and learn how to use a computer. It's a tool. And the reason why is it's the only way today to get a job. So without that digital literacy, without that ability to get online and to apply for a job, most vets, most in-need veterans are not going to be able to lift themselves out of this position in life that they're in and better their lives and their families' lives. So that's what Tech for Troops is about, is bringing them up out of whatever position they're in into a better position.
Yeah, Mark, I think what you're saying is really true. It actually reminds me of a couple of years ago, a veteran came into my office, and this veteran worked for one of our local regional park districts. And every year he had a seasonal job and he drove a dump truck, or I think a garbage truck. So every year he had to reapply for his job, but he came in very disappointed. He could no longer work driving this dump truck, or a garbage truck, excuse me, because the process for applying had become fully online and he didn't know how to use a computer. So, do we have any understanding to what extent this issue exists of digital literacy?
It's a huge issue. It's a truly huge issue. We have veterans from Iraq, Afghanistan coming in. So it's not just the Vietnam vets and the vets who served when I served 83 to 87, but it's vets from Iraq and Afghanistan who don't have the complete understanding of how to use a computer and what it is to create a resume and how to apply for a job online. Because maybe their MOS didn't have them use a computer while they were in the military. When they got out, they might not have owned one. So they never fully figured out what to do with one. And now they're coming in saying, help me get a job. Let me see what I can do with this because I want to better my life or even start a business.
Yeah, and I'm wondering too, we have Heroes with Hearing Loss on here, and most folks are probably confused as to why we're having Heroes with Hearing Loss on a conversation about digital literacy. But the idea here is that technology exists to even help people with hearing loss issues. But I wonder, to what extent do people even know about what's available to them? Sean, I know you do a lot of outreach to the community. How do people find out when they know that they're disconnected from technology and from the digital world? How do they find out about what's out there to actually help them?
That's a great question, Nathan. And you know, the word that you used there that I think is most important to the Heroes with Hearing Loss program is disconnected. So our program focuses on that connectedness. And I'll use a little bit of my own experience. I was in the military 20 years, and out of that 20 years, 16 of it was spent overseas on small Air Force bases and other bases around the world. And you get isolated when you leave that. So when veterans separate from the service or retire or come back to the United States, they're also separating themselves from the community with which they belonged while they were in the service. And that creates an intense isolation. There are studies that tell us that being isolated has the same physical effects on your body as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day for the rest of your life. That's how important it is. So at Heroes with Hearing Loss, we're focusing on using that technology, using that digital literacy to make sure that you stay connected with not only your fellow veterans, but with family, healthcare providers, jobs, as Mark said, so that you don't isolate yourself and it doesn't have that harmful impact on you.
Yeah. That's a good point that you brought up, and I like the tie-in that you brought, and thanks, Nathan, for bringing that up as far as the connection between having, the hearing loss element being brought to the digital literacy piece. We do have a question from our viewer. Do any of your groups offer training or assistance to spouses of veterans, especially vets with disabilities? So, Tina, I saw you shaking your head. Why don't you go ahead and share your response with us?
Sure. So I'm going to just dial back a little bit, but I promise it's going to tie into the viewers or to the question. So I think, first of all, it's like super important for me when I talk about why Psych Armor even has the digital literacy and why we have this portfolio of courses. And that's because within any time we have built out, I should say, through Psych Armor, on when there is a problem, and you have to raise awareness around that problem. You have to educate people about what that problem is. And the solution for us is creating these tools and training for veterans on how to use the internet. And so for the viewer, at Psych Armor, our courses are available for individual learners anytime, any day. And again, here's the big thing: have to have Wi-Fi through your phone or internet to be able to access the courses, which I know can be challenging on that. However, they're there for you at any time, so anyone can access them. But what's really interesting around this is that there was many things that was being created through the internet to start to communicate around resources. For me, I'm a clinical social worker. Telehealth was a really big thing that we wanted to tap into for our rural and remote. Or I came from New York City. It was as hard to get connected with a veteran in the Bronx as it is if you're in South Dakota. It doesn't matter. Like sometimes it's access to getting an individual face to face, so telehealth. But then we started to tackle, wait a second, we don't even know how to get them online. So it's really interesting around the courses that we have, as we were speaking about it before we came on board, is Comcast invested in this portfolio because as a company, it's extremely important to them, digital literacy and internet literacy for veterans. And so we start off, kind of try to make it as fun, like, there should be fun, quick courses all around just getting motivated to get online. And what are the benefits of being online? And how do we walk you through those steps? And so you can get online with our courses. It's going to take you step by step. You can open up another tab. Now go to this website. Now come back to the course. So it's meant to be interactive in that way. Yeah. But it's open to anybody.
Yeah. If I can just interject real quick and piggyback on something that Tina said, and part of the question is, it's super, super important to get the spouses involved as well. What we've discovered in our program is that it's really difficult sometimes to get veterans engaged because of not only isolation, but there's a little bit of a sense of pride there that even maybe refusing to acknowledge the need to do it. So if we can get spouses just as engaged as the veterans, that's really, really the key to getting everybody involved.
Well, I want to thank our viewer for that question, and I want to encourage all of our audience to get involved in this conversation tonight, whether you're a veteran or a spouse or just a concerned audience member, because really bridging this gap of digital literacy for our veterans can be very important, just as Sean and Mark and Tina have pointed out to us. In regards to access, we know we've got great organizations here. We know we've got great instructions. In regards to access, how do we help a veteran, or what's available out there for anyone who's really struggling to get access to technology, to the hardware, or to the actual digital connection, the access to the internet?
So if I may, Tech for Troops is one of two nonprofits in the nation that only deal with veterans and their families. So it would behoove you, if you're looking for a computer, to contact Tech for Troops. If you're a veteran or the spouse of a veteran, I'd ask that you go to the VA, the American Legion, the VFW, and to get vetted first. Because when people contact us, and I don't know who you are, there's a lot of fraud out there. And I hate to say it, I have to turn people down or veterans down because I don't know who you are. So if the VA, American Legion, VFW contact us, other nonprofits as well, like Wounded Warrior, probably Tina and I will create a relationship after this. And if they recommend somebody coming to us, we'll be able to get a computer to those vets and their families.
Real quickly here, Mark, let's look at this because we've got some photos to show of this process. So you say once a veteran is vetted by an American Legion, for example, then they get to Tech for Troops. Let's pull up some of those photos of Mark and Tech for Troops. Maybe you can walk us through what happens next.
So this veteran, I was at the Paralyzed Veterans of America, their wheelchair games last year, and he came to my booth, and it was just a great guy. Vietnam vet, lost a leg, and just had a great conversation with him and helped him on his way. This is Lakeisha. She's our instructor. She's the one who teaches our veterans when they come to our facility that seats 24 to be able to use a computer. And we literally have vets who don't know how to plug them into the wall and how to hold a mouse. So we start from that level and go on up to how to create a resume. He's actually receiving a computer there. That's one of the ones that we donated to a veteran. And then the last one, I believe, is Joe. He's one of my workers standing outside our door. During COVID, got the mask on, and that's how we greet our guests. And would love to see, if you're in the Richmond area, please come by and see us.
Well, thank you for those pictures. And we have just 1 minute, and I just want to mention this comment from one of our viewers. Access doesn't equal equality. Inherently, this is a intellectually deficit argument. Help is help. I'm not really sure I understand maybe all of that comment, but I think maybe what they're suggesting is that there might be somewhat of an intelligence deficit that needs to be overcome. That maybe we need to address some other issues like the ability for someone to read and write in order for them to access the digital world. Any thoughts on that? We have about 30 seconds. I see you shaking your head, Sean.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, not to necessarily throw you too much of a bone, Nathan, but one of the things that we always do is encourage veterans and spouses to go to their veteran service officers. Not only is that a way to make sure that it's a veteran that's being helped or a veteran's family that's being helped, but VSOs and county VSOs provide that gap that I think that this second comment is addressing. If there is a gap, your VSO is the key to helping you bridge it.
Agreed.
Well, I want to thank our guests so far. They're going to stick around. We've got a couple more segments on this, some very important conversation, but we're going to have to go away for a brief break. When we come back, we will continue this conversation with our panel, but now we want to take a look at the Contra Costa County Veterans Service Virtual Office, a very unique way that we are continuing to serve veterans and their families. Take a look.
Hi, today we're going to learn how to search or how to access the Contra Costa Veteran Services virtual office. We're going to start by doing a simple search. So Contra Costa Veteran Services. Then we're going to select the top one. It looks like it's the one that says contracosta.ca.gov. So this is what the homepage will look like. As you can see, they have placed a notice to all visitors and veterans that the current office is closed for public, and this is due to the COVID-19 restrictions. But in place, they have set up a CVSO virtual office. We're going to access it by clicking right here in this blue button. Looks like we're joining a meeting. Here it says that a clerk or a veteran service representative will be with us shortly.
Contra Costa County Veteran Service Office. How can I assist you today?
Hi, Josh. My name is Danitza, and I'm a newly retired Army veteran, and I wanted to know if your office can help me with filing in my disability claim.
Absolutely. Give me just a moment here. Let me see what Veteran Service Representative is available. All right. It looks like VSR Nathan Johnson is available. I'm going to go ahead and connect him to your breakout room. So once you go ahead and see the breakout room link, it will say join. And just click that join button.
Thank you. Have a great day, Josh.
You too.
Hi, Dee. I'm Nathan Johnson, the County Veteran Service Officer. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Nathan?
I'm great. Thank you. How can I help you today?
So I'm just recently separated from the military, and I am starting the process of filing my VA claim, and I was hoping to get some help from you guys.
Absolutely. I can help you with all of your VA benefits. And before I help you complete some applications, let's first start off by doing a general benefits overview.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Welcome back. Want to be part of our conversation? Call us at 925-313-1170. Send us a message through Facebook at Veterans Voices One, which a couple of you have already done already. Great to have your participation. Or email us at veteransvoices@contracostatv.org. We now want to add Stephen Burchick and Mike Slatengren to the conversation. They are both veterans who are using technology to stay connected with friends, families, and other veterans. Welcome, Steve and Slats, to the show.
Good to be here.
Real quickly, before we dive into the work that the two of you are doing through the Vietnam Vets of Diablo Valley, I just wanted to point out that our virtual office is a new capability that we've only started to introduce after COVID-19. So if many of you veterans watching tonight or family members are having a difficult time accessing anyone who can help you understand and apply for your VA benefits, just simply visit our virtual office. It would be our honor to assist you face to face. You can hear us, we can hear you, and we can do everything to help you as a veteran to understand and apply for your benefits. Many other organizations are now starting virtual offices as well. So we're very proud of this new model and hope that it benefits you. So Steve and Slats, you're using a similar platform to facilitate something within your veterans organization. Tell us what you've been doing over the past 6 months to help your group stay active.
Well, we, as a group, normally have a monthly dinner meeting with between 60 and 70 Vietnam veterans. It's a great way to connect, and we were concerned about losing the connection, so we opted to move to a Zoom format, and we resumed it. We started with about 20 people participating. Each month, the attendance grows. I think this last month, it was about up to 40 people. We also used to bring in speakers. We've continued to do that. I've got a couple shots here, number 3 and 4. Last meeting, we had the representative from the War Correspondents Association, and their objective is trying to get a ship named after Joe Rosenthal. Joe Rosenthal was the gentleman who took the picture on Iwo Jima. There's a shot of the landing there. So the members are getting connected, and we're bringing in speakers.
Thank you, Steve, for sharing that. One thing that I'd like to touch on, this is pretty near and dear to my heart. As most people know, I'm a first sergeant in the Air Force Reserves, and one of the things that we've talked about during this time is specifically that how are we staying connected with our folks? How are we keeping our groups together? How are we keeping our social gatherings together? How are people, staying connected? And I can imagine in the veteran population where you may have some disparities of people not being able to really utilize the technology properly. This right here is exactly why we needed to have this conversation today. So thank you, Steve, for sharing how your group continues to thrive in a digital setting. That's awesome. Wanted to hear from some of our from Slats as well. How are you guys utilizing technology as well to kind of keep that social aspect moving forward?
Well, besides the monthly dinner meetings that we have with our organization, we are continuing our business as a veteran organization that's serving our community. So the board members meet once a month. We have not missed a beat since the month of March. We hold our Zoom meetings. We'll have one this week and conduct our business on helping out the community. As the treasurer of that organization or of the Vietnam Veteran Organization, I'm able to produce the treasury reports. And one of the functions that we have on these Zoom application here is called a share function. And so I can share the different Excel spreadsheets and QuickBook reports to show what our profit and loss statements are so far and what our balances on our different accounts. And it works out very well. Everybody has that information in front of them, and I'm able to answer any questions they need on that.
I know you briefly mentioned your, I believe you mentioned the Vietnam vets, and I believe you yourself, you're a veteran, correct, sir?
Yes, United States Navy Vietnam veteran.
Yeah. So we wanted to touch on that really quick because we know that we have some photos to kind of signify your service. So we appreciate that. Can you let us know what's happening in your photos here?
In that photo, I'm working on a searchlight I was an aviation electrician's mate. So on that one, I'm working on a searchlight for a P3 Orion on a workbench in the shop. That one, my brother and I served as brother duty in our squadron, VP-22 out of Hawaii. And I think we had 11 sets of brothers in that at the time. Our commanding officer is quite proud of that. He asked for brother duty when he joined the Navy after me. And then this is when I first got in the Navy. I was down in San Diego. This is me working on a P2. I'm looking at something in there. It's hey, Chief, I think that is an engine. Yeah, it looks like it to me. Even though you can't see me, that is me.
Yeah. We appreciate you sharing your photos with us. We like having that tie-in, especially when we have veterans that come on the show, and the fact that you're continuing your service, obviously through your social group, and being able to be a relevant part of our conversation today, and how you've tied your service in with what you're doing today. So thank you for that.
Sure.
I think that the neat thing that I'm hearing from what's happening here is that veterans organizations are able to continue functioning by implementing technology into your day-to-day business. But I think what I also hear is that more members are actually showing up to these meetings because they have the time, they have the availability. And from what I understand, Vietnam Vets has some of its members that have moved away rejoining the group. So over the past few decades, these organizations have really struggled to build and maintain its membership. But we have potentially here a solution that might solve some of this. What would you say to that, Steve?
Absolutely right. We have a number of members who moved away. So in the last couple of meetings, we have people coming in or signing in on the Zoom call from Southern California, Arizona, Texas, state of Washington. And it's helped reconnect people, some of whom hadn't seen each other in years. It's almost as if we should have been doing this all along.
Yeah, a comment from one of our audience members says here, it's removed geographical boundaries and barriers. I agree. Sean.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is worth mentioning is we talk about the technology removing some of these barriers. Hearing loss is one of two of the top disabilities for veterans. Hearing loss and tinnitus both affect their hearing. So a lot of veterans may be intimidated to use some of this new technology because if it's already difficult, the idea that they may not be able to hear it very well can increase that barrier as well. We want veterans to understand that there are ways around that, and don't let that be an inhibiting factor to using some of this technology. And one of the specific solutions that the HEROES program offers for veterans with hearing loss is a captioned telephone, which works exactly like a regular telephone. You listen to the conversation, but you can also see closed captionings just like you would if you were watching a television show. So you can reach out to the HEROES program, and we provide that at no cost to veterans, and a veteran service officer can authorize that for you. So just what I'm trying to say is, just because you have hearing loss, and a lot of us do, in fact, the majority of veterans do, don't let that be an inhibiting factor of reconnecting or using some of this technology.
So if your interest is in connecting with other veterans, just as Slats shared his story about having served in the military, and you want to be a part of that, you want to share your story and hear the other story of other veterans, using technology, having access to technology can actually help connect you, remove physical geographical barriers or any kind of problems with hearing loss. I think, Mark, you were going to add something to that.
Yeah, there's two things. One is every computer that Tech for Troops sends out has a camera. We do not send out computers without cameras. So we can, or veterans can, telehealth or do Zoom meetings, Skype meetings, whatever it is. The other is that computers are pretty easy to use. And what I want to impart to anybody who's listening out there is, if you've never touched one, if you've never tried to, we can teach you. All of us, and probably everybody here on this call, could teach you how to use a computer pretty fast, and it's not that hard.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think probably computers that were 40 years ago were large and complex, and today they're almost built to not shut off. So you really don't even have to shut the thing off. You just close it, open it back up. Yeah, I know that, Steve, you also use technology personally. You have, as a veteran, published a couple of books. So how do you, not just in connecting to other veterans, but how do you use technology to get your story out to non-veterans so they can better understand your experiences in the military?
Well, before COVID, I would contact different groups, Rotary, Kiwanis, et cetera, and give talks, promote the book that way. But also got very active by promoting it online. I have a website, use Facebook, and I've learned to do testing on Facebook. I'll promote a book, or the quick background is I took a lot of pictures, more than 4,000 pictures while I was in infantry in Vietnam. So what I'll do is I'll post a picture with a short caption and say, if you want to see more, here's a book. And you've got one image there, number 11, if you can pull that up. I had a lot of different shots, sometimes helicopters flying in, guys going through muddy rivers, and a lot of excitement and drama. Well, this shot you're seeing is a pretty boring, mundane shot. A bunch of guys standing around cleaning rifles. This is actually the orientation first week in Vietnam. It turns out that one got the biggest reaction. I got 4 times the response to that photo promoting the book than any other photo I've done. And I've tried to analyze it. I think part of it is because it was common. Everybody who went to Vietnam had to learn how to use a rifle, even if they wound up being a clerk or a cook or a mechanic. So it's a common thread. And but anyway, using the technology to test it and find different ways of doing better.
So
It's
real quickly,
a lot
we
of
have to
fun.
end this segment, but Steve, real quickly, if you can clean a rifle, can you use a computer?
Yes.
All
In
right,
fact,
fantastic.
it's easier to use the computer.
We appreciate that, Steve. Thank you. When we return, we'll talk about how the digital world can be very different from the one we're used to. But first, let's hear a little about that from our friends at Digital Literacy 101.
Traditional media like radio, television, and print are largely one way, meaning you can't really do anything but listen, watch, or read it. In today's ultra-networked world, digital media are interconnected and interactive. Online, you're part of an infinite network. You can connect to others as easily as they can connect to you. You can find communities of users with common interests, values, and beliefs. You have instant access to people, information, and knowledge from around the world. The flip side? Anyone can post anything online and make it look authentic. So you have to double-check information you find to make sure it's for real. Be aware and be smart. Digital Media Smart. Think of the last time you learned something or saw a news story online. How did you know if it was true? What steps did you take to find out?
Welcome back. We're talking about digital literacy. We want to welcome you to contact us with your questions and call us at 925-313-1170. Send us a message through Facebook at Veterans Voices One or email us at veteransvoices@contracostatv.org. We want to start this segment by talking a little bit about the downside of using technology and looking out for yourself in this digital world. So we'll welcome back our panelists. We've got Sean, Tina, Mark, Stephen, and Mike. So as we get ready to kick off this segment, we've talked a lot about some good, interactions and usage of digital literacy within social networking amongst our veteran population. But as we know, not all things, are always working together. And we want to maybe talk just briefly about some of the things that are a little bit of a hindrance, maybe with regards to the digital literacy piece. So, Mark, if you like to kick us off, I'd love to hear from you.
Sure. So what I would tell everybody out there is that the internet's a great place. You can find your mates. You can read all sorts of information. You can listen to podcasts, or you can listen to TV, watch movies, and where you go, the web pages that you go to is what you're going to see, and that doesn't really make sense unless you've done it before. But if you go to pages that people, hey, go check this out, that's this is what's true. Well, you have to read between the lines as you're doing it. And it's the common sense that you bring to what you're reading as to whether or not something sounds true. There's a lot of stuff on the internet that's not true, but there's a lot of true stuff as well. So I would say get in there. Don't be afraid. Enjoy yourself and take it one page at a time. And that sounds different, but there are pages on the internet. Okay.
What are some of the Go ahead, Sean.
Sorry, if you don't mind, I'd like to piggyback that on just a second. One of the things to add to that is not only be careful of the internet, but we veterans know that there are folks out there that are looking to take advantage of your status, and they're looking to make a buck off of you. And it's unfortunate, but that's true as well. So use the internet as well as an opportunity to vet the people that want to work with you. Once again, your veteran service officer, your American Legion representative, your VFW representative, they are great resources to make sure. So if you find something on the internet that you feel would be helpful, take that extra step, just double check, make sure they're legit. All the folks on this panel can help you out. But that's just another factor to keep in mind out there. But don't let it hinder you.
Absolutely. Tina, wanted to definitely hear from you. What are your thoughts with, regards to maybe just some things to be mindful of?
Yeah, well, I guess in this area, and I wanted to mention this in the last segment, so I don't want to take us back too far, but I think when I also think about technology, I think that there's so much more than just the web. Like, Portal for Facebook. You can have your family in the kitchen with you. It's more than just FaceTime. And with that does bring about some other challenges, like, just the funny common etiquettes. How many of you have watched all of the funny Facebook things or the Zoom calls where people forget to turn off their cameras, right? But that stuff is really real. And, I teach at Columbia University. I teach social workers. So we're also very, very concerned around technology, HIPAA, state laws, and just the simple thing of knowing when your camera's on and off. I mean, that's just basic, that it can sometimes be running in the background and you don't know. And so just double check it. So there's some of those little things around the nuances of utilizing that online camera that brings us so connected. Can also just turn it off, or no, remember to mute, like we were talking about before this segment. Sometimes people are like, I work a lot with military spouses, so we've been working from home for a while. The internet and having access to this has been such a tremendous tool for us over the years. And sometimes we forget we're not on mute when we're yelling at our kids.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
I talk a lot about etiquette. And I would just add, I think too, there's so many people that are working from home now. And so veterans are going to have to learn how to work from home. And so there are some online techniques and etiquette that to apply to your workspace. We all did it before we got on camera today. So I think that those are nuances to remember when you start to.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that, because, the etiquette and the videos that you're talking about that we've seen more often than not happening in this age is very helpful for mindful for anybody, especially in our veteran population, but for anybody. So we did have, it looks like we had a viewer that had maybe a comment here. So I'm going to take a moment here to address this. Says, I'm an Army vet who was just going to flip through FB while putting the kids to bed, and I came across this cast. Way to be so innovative in reaching vets and fams in the digital domain and putting out such constructive and educational content. So that was a comment from one of our viewers. And look, so we're already being our own example of how we're using digital literacy during this age of technology to reach our masses in our community. So thank you all for sharing, your different perspectives regarding, just some things to be mindful of with regards to digital literacy. Steve, did you have anything you wanted to add? I feel like I saw your head nod a little earlier.
Just in terms of some of the good places to go, I like military.com. It's a website for active duty as well as retired, but it covers a variety of different topics, and I learn a lot. But there are lots of other places you can go.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to throw one more out there, Steve. I love that. And there's another place veterans can go. It's called ID.me, M-E. And you put your information in there, and the PXs the Marine Corps was a PX back in the 80s. I don't know what they call it now, commissaries.
PX and BX, yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
Using ID.me, you can go to PX today and buy online and have it shipped to your house. So that's a savings for you immediately if you ID.me and go to the commissary, the PX, or whatever it is for what. But that's a cool thing to do as well.
Yeah, I'm really glad you pointed that out, Mark. I've actually taken advantage of that a lot over the past 7 months during COVID, because a lot of the local grocery stores and box stores were out of supplies. But having this access to the online exchange and commissary was really helpful for me and my family. So I encourage veterans who don't want to go on Facebook and don't want to create profiles to still be able to use technology to serve just the basic needs of your family. And like you said, it's actually the same military commissary that you would shop at if you were to go to a military base. So fantastic benefit. Aaron, I think we had another comment that you were going to cover.
We did, yeah. So we had another comment. It actually looks maybe like a question as well. Has anyone considered the invaluable resource of the smartphone itself, since it's with us 24/7? I saw Tina, your head immediately started shaking. So go ahead.
I love that. I love that comment, because again, I think it's a matter of keeping things simple. So everything that we talk about that we think we need a computer for, 100%, it's all on our phone now. And often we can get free Wi-Fi even quicker than we can our computers, and some of the things even around, telehealth and access to VA, especially during times of COVID. Some of the restrictions around the ways in which you can use your smartphone is different. But then I also want to talk about something that is important around the different apps that are out there that are on your smartphone. They're lifesavers. So we do a whole portfolio around suicide prevention, intervention, and postvention. And some of these apps are, because number one, they're super easy, super accessible, and oftentimes you don't have to enter information. That's the one thing that I would say anyone who's starting any type of internet initiative, we know from Psych Armor that the more questions we ask on the front end before establishing rapport, learners drop off. So there is a sensitivity. Everyone's worried about providing their information, but these apps can be quick, easy, and very resourceful in a great way, in a variety of different ways to help veterans in the community. So I am a huge proponent of the smartphone and the different accessibility. So I love that comment. I think it's
Yeah, the smartphone, if I may, it also illustrates something else about technology that we haven't really touched upon. We've talked a lot about access, but the way we access now is different too. Bluetooth on your smartphone can now connect directly into your hearing aids for veterans with hearing loss. And that makes a brilliant way to have conversations. Hamilton Captel, who provides our caption telephone, is working right this minute on a captioning app for your smartphone, which will function exactly the same way as your caption telephone at home. So the ways in which we can access technology are improving also, and the smartphone is almost always on the forefront of that technology.
So just to make sure our audience fully understands that, what you're saying is that a set of hearing aids that a person wears on a day-to-day basis has the capability of connecting to a cell phone like an Apple iPhone or Samsung, and you can have a phone conversation with someone through your hearing aids while looking at the screen of your phone and getting the closed captioning information that helps that person understand that conversation. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's correct, Nathan. The captioning part is on the way. Hamilton Captel is working on that right now. But the Bluetooth connection to your hearing aids, almost every single set of hearing aids that you get nowadays can connect through Bluetooth right to your smartphone. In fact, I have a 30-year-old son who is profoundly deaf and wears hearing aids, and he's been doing that for years and years. The technology only continues to get better in terms of clarity, which is a good reminder to upgrade your technology regularly as a veteran. Make sure that your hearing aids are being upgraded, because that happens for free through your veteran service officer and your VA. Make sure that you have good technology on your smartphone. If you have a smartphone, it can do nothing but help. But yes, you're absolutely correct. Directly from the phone, right into your ear.
That's phenomenal. I'm really glad we covered that. Thank you so much, Sean. And I don't want to turn away from that, but I want to bring slats back into the conversation here. We learned in the beginning of this show that challenges in accessing technology are not specifically generational. But of your generation, slats, what do you hear from people in terms of moving forward when they know that there's organization like Tech for Troops and Psych Armor's Guide, and they have, organizations like Heroes for Hearing Loss, all the resources are right there in front of them. What do you think still continues to hold them back from moving forward and bridging this technology gap?
For those of us that are in my era, the Vietnam veterans, the older ones, and we've got Korean veterans, still a few World War II veterans around that. I think they are a little bit concerned about, afraid to touch the keyboard. I'm going to break something. I'm not going to be able to get out of it. I was going to make the comment, if you're fortunate enough to live near your grandchildren, or if you're a younger veteran who still has children in the house, they can help us out tremendously on that. Just a couple weeks ago, I got a new cell phone myself, and I wanted to add an app to it, and I didn't know how to do it. I gave it to my 13-year-old grandson. He handed it back to me 30 seconds later and says, "Here, Grandpa, it's on there." A kid in the neighborhood that you trust, they'll warn you about places to watch out for, and so that you don't get a virus in your system. Also, they're very sharp.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We appreciate you sharing that. We do have a caller on the line. We'd like to go ahead and get that comment in from our caller or question. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Hello?
What's your name?
My name is David.
Hi, David. Welcome to the show. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you very much. Your topic Thank you very much. Your topic is digital media smart, and you gave a lot of advice like double check, but I might have missed it, but can you give a specific answer or way to double check? That's the toughest thing to do, is to double check. You don't know what to do, how to do it.
Are you talking about double checking something that you're visiting online, like a website?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How to double check and make sure that something's legitimate? Mark, can you answer that? We've got about 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's a tough question, honestly, and it's going to depend on what your point of view is. And I don't mean to go political left or right, because it's not. But if you're going to places that you agree with, that's what you're going to read. And if you're going to places you disagree with, that's what you're going to read. You're going to have to find those locations, find those web pages that you trust, that you know are going to give you the truth. And that's a hard question. We all struggle with that.
I also just want to say real quickly, make sure that the last 3 letters of any website you're visiting end in something like .gov. If you think that it's a legitimate website, if it's not a .gov and it's a .com and it's the IRS trying to reach out to you, odds are it might be some type of scam. So the IRS is not going to use a .com. The IRS is going to use a .gov. So that's how I would advise you to be cautious. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
With that, go to the IRS webpage and make a phone call, right? Go to your neighbors or whatever and make a phone call and call them and say, would you do this?
Right.
And that's the best way. Never, ever trust that.
I agree.
And I would just say very, very briefly, Nathan, sir, I would just say very, very briefly that we all have great instincts as veterans. If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not.
Yeah.
Very good point.
Thank you all so much for sharing. And we appreciate our caller and your participation today and all of our guests. We hope you found our conversation about digital literacy informative and inspiring. At the end of the show, we'll show some more resources to help start you on your path to digital literacy. But now it's time to hear a veteran's voice. And this month, our Veterans Voices correspondent, Shauna Springer, talks with veteran and author Michael Kanan.
Well, I'm so pleased today to bring my friend Michael Kanan on for a segment of A Veteran's Voice. Michael has just come out with a new book, T-AI. And this is a huge week for you, Michael. So I just want to acknowledge that. And I'm excited for you. And thank you for making time to join us for this segment on A Veteran's Voice.
Shauna, I can think of no better place that I would want to be right now. And thanks for your determination and focus on sharing these conversations. I mean, think about it. Why else do we have verbal and written language and we interact with one another than to let it go to waste on the hard topics? And that's what you embody. So I appreciate being here.
You are an AI expert with a humanist bent, which I really appreciate. And I honor your expertise as well. Let's start with maybe some background on your military service. Anything you want to share with us?
I think the thing I think about most about my military service is that I grew up without knowing anyone in the military. I'm reminded often that only about 1% of this country have served. And there are plenty of communities and areas where we just don't always have that experience. Yet we say, thank you for your service and all the rest of the pieces. And I always ask, what do those words mean? So growing up without having exposure to that, I went to the Air Force Academy, and that was largely based on having an opportunity and being in a family and around people who always said, you can't always reopen doors in life. So if you have the opportunity to walk through one, you never want to say, what if? And that was where I find myself today. And I could not be more grateful to the people and to the opportunities of seeing the world and everything else that it's exposed to me.
You and I have also had conversations about the misuse of artificial intelligence or the misapplication of it to things that maybe you would say as an AI expert, it wasn't really best designed to address. And one of the areas that we've talked about is about using AI for sort of suicide prevention, prediction, predictive ability, and just wanted to get your thoughts on that and hear what you have to say on that topic, because we both hear it all the time. Let's develop some kind of gizmo that does this thing that allows us to have this bird's eye view on who is going to be at risk for suicide. Love to hear your thoughts.
I'm going to sum it up in 3 words. Stop the train. There is too much techno-solutionism going on. And when I say that, I mean that we run into a problem and then we say, well, surely the most advanced technology in the world will help us to address that problem. So here's my concern. If we just use artificial intelligence to say, well, I bet that could predict suicidal ideations, there are 2 issues that arise. Number 1, for whom? Who are we talking about here? A certain demographic? Did you go back and collect all of the data from what is ultimately the most unique, human-centric, anomalous experience that there could absolutely be, right? And how are we going to get data that's representative of everyone? That's number 1. And number 2, if we could, and all of a sudden we told everyone, well, we're going to get data from everyone because this is a problem that we have, so we want to be able to predict it. Are we actually doing more secondary and tertiary damage by saying, go interact outside of the system, get away from community, right? Because then you're concerned about being collected upon. So you have a slippery slope argument.
Right.
That's not to say that technology is not beneficial. There are plenty of ways when we bring, and you and I have talked about this before, bringing anonymous in-home healthcare and telehealth that you don't have to walk through the door so someone sees your face doing that at the Family Readiness Center. We could bring that into the home. There are a number of platforms and technologies that have great communities, Twitch, Animal Crossing. How can we use these platforms to better connect people and to go through trauma and to experience it together and to help with one another? So there is a place for technology, but if we don't understand the technology and we just wield the words AI without really understanding what it's all about, I fear mistakes in the future.
Tell us what T-minus AI is essentially about and why people should buy a copy and read your work.
Think about the way AI has infiltrated our lives. It's the reason your 401k does what it does. It's mostly the suggestions of music you get. It's pretty much the news you get, by the way, right? This is the reason. It's the ads you see. It creates, I believe in my mind that the whole world talks about artificial intelligence because my algorithms like that, right? When not necessarily everyone does. It creates art. It creates what we deem as fake news nowadays, computer-generated content. And you know what? For millennials, hashtag adults under 40 out there in the world, it's, you can blame early machine learning applications for the perpetuation of the stock market crash, right? So it's a part of our lives every single day. And what I ask, and by the way, even in baseball, so as a baseball fan, I think, it's in some ways ruined the entire game. That's up for debate, I understand. That's America's pastime. So it affects all these things that we deal with every single day. Yet the question is most of the time we place it on a pedestal. It's like we throw the kitchen sink, not the kitchen sink, the kitchen and the living room out the window, and then we all of a sudden can't just discuss it. We can't talk about it, and we start to lose our frameworks. We start to lose our sense of self because of those words, artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. So despite everything at risk and all the conversations, it just remains shrouded behind this cloud of mystery and misunderstanding and hidden behind complex technical terms. They're confused even further by our extravagant depictions in science fiction.
Yeah.
The realities and its profound implications to each of our lives, they seem tough to decipher, but they're crucial to understand. So in the book, what I do is I explain realities of AI from a human-oriented perspective that's easy to comprehend through our collective history of innovation and technology, because the topic is truly a multidisciplinary one. You have to know a little bit about our own evolution, the development of language, the scales of numbers, both big and small, how computers work, of course, at a basic level, some of our own history, and also a little bit of how your brain works, right? And once we have that, then let's move to the discussion of what is it? What does it mean to say AI? What is a neural network? And the reason for that is it generally starts at that point, but we don't have any context. So it's the same circular conversation where I had mentioned we speak above, pass below, and through one another. And then once we lay that out and we can say, I can a little bit understand how in ones and zeros, we roughly depict a neuron in our brain. Okay, I gotcha. And my book helps you understand how we got to this place. Then let's talk about the big stuff. Yeah. The way that it can influence our lives, the global implications, and the cultural and national vulnerabilities and personal ones already exposed, and the pressing issues squarely on the table right now. But without, the aspects of this tripod or this chair we can sit on, all three of those, the conversation seems to be meaningless. And what I wanted to do is really tap into the books that inspired me, the books that talked about the human experience, because we as humans, and in your work, we learn best through connection and storytelling. And what I want to do is write a book about artificial intelligence that was human-centric, all about storytelling of us.
Yeah, well, you're the perfect source for that wisdom and that message. And I'm so glad you wrote this. I would have probably read a lot of it if it hadn't come late last night, because this is your launch week. So I look forward to reading it, Michael, and I'm grateful to you for coming on and sharing with us today. Thank you.
Shauna, grateful for you and your friendship, and I'm sure we'll talk, probably this week after this. But thanks for having me on.
Thank you for tuning in to the show tonight. We hope our discussion has helped inspire you to start your path to digital literacy. Here are some resources that can help. Tech for Troops helps many veterans get online. You can contact them at techfortroops.org or by calling 804-521-7979. Heroes with Hearing Loss can help veterans with hearing loss stay in touch. Go to heroeswithhearingloss.org or call 800-974-1517. Psych Armor Institute provides veterans with online technology training. Find them at psycharmor.org or call 858-755-3006. The Contra Costa Health Department is giving free flu shots at many of its COVID test sites. To learn more, visit coronavirus.cchealth.org or call 855-5-TEST-ALL. Want to talk with like-minded veterans who can also help with veterans benefits? Join the Coffee and Conversation virtual meetup every Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Email maurice.delmer@va.gov or hmancada292@contracosta.edu and ask for your invitation. Veterans Voices is brought to you in part by contributions from the 2020 Census. Now more than ever, it is important for veterans to stand up and be counted. The Veterans Affordable Home Program, serving those who served us, ensuring the American dream for our veterans. The Diablo Valley Veterans Foundation, dedicated to helping veterans near you. And a generous contribution from Ken and Pat Rishell. To rewatch tonight's episode, check back on our homepage later this week or check your cable provider's schedule for rebroadcast times. You can also rewatch this episode and many others on our YouTube channel, Veterans Voices of Contra Costa, so be sure to subscribe. Our next show will air on Monday, November 9th at 7 p.m. We will talk about student veterans. Be sure to tune in. To all our veterans and their families, thanks for watching and have a great evening.